La Sul TV, the Book of TV La Star. We back at T for the Star now. For this video, this is a continuation of my future perspective. Call it that. We're gonna get to see. Let's see what the video is titled. Why the U.S. is running out of everything. This is how you know that this is the beginning of the future, when we start to run out of the basic resources that we have been thriving off of for the last century. So when we come to a point where there is no resources left, there is no animals left, there is no inhabitable spaces on Earth, in return, we're going to be forced to go deeper into the future, which it could be metaverses, it could be augmented reality, it could be more a artificial intelligence based society, those things of those type of natures. Got the water today.
The coronavirus pandemic has sent supply chains into a tailspin. First it was toilet paper, then it was ketchup packets, gnomes, semiconductors. Now it's rubber.
Multiple factors are leading to a major rubber shortage around the world.
This could be getting a lot worse. We could be on the cusp of a rubber apocalypse.
To ensure an uninterrupted supply of natural rubber from the few regions of the world which grow it is a major concern of every world power, most of all the United States.
The global natural rubber market was valued at nearly $40 billion in 2020, but
demand for rubber is really continuing to increase.
One analysis predicts the rubber market could be worth nearly $68.5 billion by 2026. Rubber is a critical raw material. Just think, anytime you're going anywhere, by car, plane, or even by foot, you're using rubber. But rubber is also used in your personal protective equipment, like gloves and masks, like the elastics that stretch behind your ears. Plus, it's used in literal rubber bands. And then there are hair ties, underwear, erasers, condoms, and more. Rubber ducks, though, those are plastic. It's used in more than 40,000 commercial products.
You could call it a shortage. Some people are referring to it more as a supply chain disruption.
Rubber producers are...
You heard what he said, a supply chain disruption. This is what I say. This is how I know for a fact we are living in present day or modern day future. Because once these things start to disappear, other things are going to appear. Say, hold on, what you mean? The other technological advancements that they are putting out to the forefront. This is why you see in a lot of future movies, a lot of the shit is made out of more raw materials and more indestructible materials. Shit that's gonna last for generations, instead of just lasting long enough for the person that purchased it to go buy another one. That's why this is what they made. This is how they made their world work. Majority of the shit that we need, we have to continue to go back and buy the same shit. Nothing that we buy is sustainable. Nothing that we purchase is sustainable. Nothing lasts forever. But in reality, the things that they're going to start to make that will last forever, it's going to be a chain of events from the things that they no longer have an abundance of. Just like they said with the rubber.
Are working against all odds. Climate change, disease, both COVID and a destructive fungus. Not to mention the fight for shipping containers. So let's break down what exactly this all means for the rubber shortage. Before the coronavirus struck, the rubber industry faced challenges. But to start, here's how rubber is made. Well, natural rubber anyway. It's kind of like how you would tap a tree for maple syrup. Certain trees can be tapped for liquid sap, also known as latex.
You heard what she said, or natural rubber, that is. So we already know that majority of the rubber that we have in circulation now in United States is majority of it is not real rubber. So this is where they get latex from a certain trees. I never knew this type of thing.
Latex is gathered from the trees by making a cut in the bark, collecting the runny sap in cups.
By mid-morning, the workers are ready to begin their collection.
It's called the Hevea brasiliensis.
Look
and
at
as
this
the
shit.
name
I never knew
suggests,
this is how
it's
you
a
get
tree that is
latex
originary
or
of,
rubber.
South America.
Ammonia is added to keep the sap from solidifying. Then acid is added in a process called coagulation to extract the rubber. A few hours later, the mixture goes through rollers to remove excess water, then layers of rubber are hung over racks to dry for a couple of days before being folded into bales for processing. There are synthetic rubbers.
America's synthetic rubber problem needs a solution.
But sometimes it can't be swapped out for the real thing because of natural rubber's particular properties. Take airplane tires as an example. Gotta be 100% natural rubber. And most natural rubber doesn't come from the US, not even North America. In fact, most of the world's natural rubber, 90% of it, comes from
Southeast Asia, Thailand specifically, the largest producer.
the US imported $140 million worth of natural rubber in March 2021 alone. Most of that rubber comes from independent farmers in Southeast Asia, also known as smallholders.
85% of the natural rubber that we have in the world today is produced by smallholders. So these are families that work on lands that are usually 1 to 2 hectares in size. This means that...
Look at this forest that they in. This is the forest that they put in scary movies and shit like this. So they scaring us away from the natural and habitats. They're scaring us away from the natural resources, and in return, these natural habitats and these natural resources are becoming more and more scarce.
1 to 2 soccer or football fields.
Those families of farmers are at war with diseases destroying the crops.
Fungus affecting rubber-producing plants has destroyed 10% of global supply.
But Pestaloteuopsis and Neophysococcus, the trees are only like 8 feet apart, and they're all clones. So there's very little genetic diversity. So it's a bunch of identical twins for miles on end. So of course, if one gets a bad disease, they're all susceptible to it. There's no immunity. It's a desperately sensitive system.
And farmers face the impacts of climate change on their business.
Extreme weather events last year had a significant impact on that loss of production. But if you've got major floods, you're going to kill your trees. You've got tsunamis and typhoons. Again, that major issues on supply.
Farmers have to be strategic about planting their crops.
You have to plant a tree, and that tree takes 4 to 7 years to mature before you can get rubber out of it. So if there's not enough careful planning and enough...
This is how we do not think. 4 to 7 years to get a tree. What's the average 4 to 7 years thing that we do in the United States? Because it ain't growing crops or agriculture or investing in a small plot of land to start growing your own trees to in return be able to make a living off of your own individual land that you own. 4 to 7 years. 4 years is, I think, is the beginning thing in college, which what they call it associates degree, the basic one, bachelor's, the next one. Yeah, so I think you probably can get within 4 to 7 years, you can probably get a bachelor's degree. But in reality, in 4 to 7 years, you can have a whole tree that's producing a certain resource that the world needs, and in return, you don't need to go out and find a job for nobody else. So just imagine if you started with 3 trees, and in 7 years you got 3 trees planted, and then the fruit that fall off of those trees, or the resource that fall off of those trees, guess what you do with the seeds? In return, you got more free trees to continue to plant your crop. This is the real college system right here, is investing in a resource that the world needs in the beginning, and then after the 4 to 7 years and you graduated with your bachelor's degree of whichever resources you planted, then you will start to be able to gain generational wealth, because then you will forever be able to pass down your knowledge of how to cultivate and process different crops and resources.
Resources that are put into replanting, then we see what we've seen in the past years, that you have a cyclical nature in the availability of rubber. So basically, the prices are low, right? What happens is that people don't plant because it seems that there's no business case for rubber. At a certain point, demand keeps increasing up to a point where prices start picking up. And
didn't I just say that? I said, just imagine if you planted 3 and you planted it before you needed. But since at one point in time that the demand wasn't as high as it is now for rubber, they stopped planting so many trees. So then as the demand grew, it outgrew the amount of trees that they had. So, and as we know, it takes 7 years for one tree to grow to be able to extract sap out of it. How many trees do you need? Do you think you need to be able to make hundreds of goddamn tires and other shit that we use rubber for? This is why I say we in the future, because they're gonna extract every ounce of resources from this planet, and there's not gonna be anything left. The whole planet is gonna look like goddamn a desert with dirt in the future.
People start planting rubber a lot, but that rubber doesn't come into fruition until 4 to 7 years after that. And when it comes into the market, then you have a slump in prices.
This causes rubber farmers to face unreliable income streams. That makes it hard to afford resources to fight off those diseases.
Rubber tappers are only being paid like $2 to $6 a day. That's not a living wage. There was no money left to
$2 to $6 to get to do that daily wages. So at the end of the day, they make $2 to $6 a day. We can't get no piece of rubber, let alone a reliable piece of rubber that we can actually utilize for no $2 to $6. Come on now, the average tire costs at least 5 times that amount.
Improve the health of plants. There's no money left for fertilizers or for proper tree maintenance.
And then COVID-19.
So the people that need the rubber the most, which is the United States, and it's a billion-dollar industry, and they not even putting resources back into the people that they extracting all their resources from. So in return, shit is starting to happen, and the ecosystem is starting to die off because of the resources not being put back into the earth. The more you take, the more you have to give back to the earth. It's not the more you take, then the more you recreate. No, the more you take, the more you have to put back into the earth. So if I take up 50 trees, I have to then in return plant 100 trees.
Scrambles the supply chain even further. Now, demand for rubber is spiking. Part of the reason? Car tires.
So tires is by far the largest consumer of natural rubber. But what really matters is how much are people using tires. Yeah? With food deliveries and, well, not just food, but goods in general, we are using tires more and more.
Manufacturers have told CNBC that they haven't been affected yet.
Tire maker Goodyear telling CNBC we are not currently experiencing supply limitations.
I got the semi thing already going, but how about rubber? We got enough?
Yeah, Jim, the short answer is we do. We never have had a problem of getting some.
City of Bangalore. That was when the city was being transformed to the Silicon.
These are the Camper Scouts, earning their Eco Badge. They're sharing this FedEx electric vehicle and Frank's sustainable camping store with their global Scout community. Good thing Frank uses FedEx to help him expand his reach and make Earth a priority.
Silicon Valley of India, basically. Construction boom happening all over, and all that sand was coming from precious places.
Construction has caused a steep increase in demand for sand, and a lot of sand is being extracted from oceans and rivers.
They're taking up all the sand. They say, what they need the sand for? They need sand to make other infrastructure as far as concrete different shit like that. So this is how they making. This is what I say. This is how they making all of this futuristic technology and all this new infrastructure. So by the time they get done building the future, the world, the ecosystem as we know it now and as we knew it growing up has already changed. So just imagine when our kids get to the age that we are now, none of this shit gonna be around no more. Sand and shit like that don't reproduce on itself.
It's not just shortage in the market, it's shortage in the natural environment that has to be talked about. The concern is that there's literally not enough sand on coastlines in a context of rising sea levels and increased storm.
Sand crafted by water is more valuable than desert sand, eroded by wind. That makes desert sand too smooth, it doesn't bind together as well as other types of sand. Sand is sourced and extracted.
So they gotta take the sand from the natural place it come from, which is in the water, which it stays its natural, it stays in its natural form, where it's more easily manipulated to turn into concrete for infrastructure. So they don't even want this dead sand that's washed up on the beaches that everybody like to walk through.
From seabeds, coastlines, quarries, or rivers is more angular, so it locks together. And that's important because this kind of sand is a key ingredient in cement and concrete.
Didn't I say that? Concrete, cement. This is what most of the infrastructure is made out of. And have we ever thought about, when we see a lot of future movies, they don't never show you the ocean no more. They don't never show you like water, big bodies of water. Know why? Because they didn't goddamn dried all that shit out by sucking the bottom, the floor bed, the seabed from underneath it. It's like if you sleeping and somebody take the whole bed frame from underneath you. And by the time you hit the ground, you wake up, the bed ain't even there no more. Of course, some shit gonna happen.
Concrete is made up of 65 to 75% sand and gravel.
Then there's glass. Sand, gravel, and rock, crushed together, are melted down to make the glass used in every window, computer screen, and smartphone.
Glass is about...
Exactly. Look how much glass we using. People don't know what the resources that we using to... People don't understand where the resources come from for the shit that we using. And that we killing the planet. Not we just a contributor to killing the planet by using these things that we don't pay attention to the place it come from, which is the same place that we in return want to stay alive and live on, which is the earth. So everybody is just living this contradiction of like, oh yeah, I care about my life and all this shit, but then everything that's being done to the earth, nobody pays attention to. Or anytime you try to bring up a conversation about anything relevant outside of anything, nobody of anybody groups of friends want to have a logical conversation about the earth or anything that's detrimental to our kids' generation.
70% silica sand. So there are very specific types of sand that are required for specific uses. And these places are limited.
Even the production of silicon computer...
Exactly. This is why they went around in certain areas when they came over in the beginning of the 1600s and all those explorations. This is why they went to different continents, because each continent was a piece to the puzzle. That's why everything worked so smoothly before civilization, because like I said, each continent had their own special elements and resources that worked and meshed well with each other continent that had their own special minerals and resources. And as all of that mixed and combined, we had a beautiful planet as a whole, with no tsunamis, no tidal waves, no hurricanes, no abundance of tornadoes, and all of this famine and all of this pollution and the ecosystem dying and the ocean overfilling and all of this abundance of shit, all caused by civilization.
Computer chips uses sand. But extracting sand...
I never knew microchips use sand to make. I never knew that. This is why I say we using shit that we don't even know where the resources come from. I never knew that they got latex from trees to make rubber. I did not know that. And I definitely didn't know that microchips, which every phone, just like the phone I'm using right now, and this TV has a big ass microchip in it. So just imagine all the sand that everything that they terraform in the earth. And once they terraform the earth, it won't look the same. So in return, people won't want to live the same way that we live in now. So in return, guess what we're going to want to live at? In the metaverse. We're going to want to live in the future. We're going to want to live amongst artificial intelligence.
Can damage the environment.
Extractions of marine sand, coastal sand, beach is the worst. And rivers is something that is leading to tremendous environmental impact.
For oceans, well, imagine you scrape sand off the bottom of the ocean. That's going to affect the microorganisms that live in the ocean floor. That's going to affect the fish that eat the microorganisms, and then the fish that eat those fish. Basically, the sand removal affects an entire ecosystem.
So basically, didn't I just say that? I said each continent had their own special resource and mineral that was a piece to the puzzle, and as the planet as a whole, each different continent that had their own special resources and minerals, we all fit together and made this puzzle a picture, which we looked at it as Earth, because it was one whole beautiful thing. But once you knock over one domino, it's going to be a domino effect, and the Earth that we occupy is so big, we just now getting to the end of the domino effect. A lot of people see dominoes and then it's just a small set of dominoes. So that counteraction of dominoes falling happens quickly. But since the space that we occupy is so big, it's taking more time for all of those dominoes to fall. But once all of those dominoes fall, we're going to be in the deep future, and there won't be nowhere way to go back, because there's going to be nothing to go back to, because they're killing the earth.
Sand is the most extracted resource in the world by volume, surpassing even fossil fuels. Actually, even extracting oil and gas uses a lot of sand, like in fracking. And yet, sand has been easy to ignore.
Essentially, it's invisible in our minds and in the way that we manage the resource. We don't think about it as a strategic resource, and yet it is everywhere in our societies and our economies.
And as a result, we're wasting these resources. And in 2019,
wasteful.
We produced this report, which was submitted to the United Nations Environmental Assembly, and it was used for making a new resolution on global mineral governance.
When you say it was wasteful, just like watching videos of these mega projects, and I stated this in another previous video, where they go in and have these big dream infrastructure ideas that they want to go ahead and try to do. So in return, guess what they do? They suck up a lot of resources and minerals, sand, and all this shit to create concrete and all these other different shit to be able to create the infrastructure. And then guess what? Some time goes by and the damn mega project doesn't even come into fruition. The shit never even gets completed. So in return, they wasted all of the shit that they taken from the earth. This is what they known to do. They take so much shit and they can't use it all. So it's killing the earth. And in return, once they kill the earth, what the earth gonna do? The earth is gonna kill the people kill the things, the living things that inhabit the earth. So this is why they're in a rush to create a different reality for everybody to be able to escape to, for the shit that they cause that they're not trying to stop, because they need to continue to extract all these resources to continue to fuel the future.
And it was adopted by all countries, and it was the first time that countries recognized that we have a problem with sand.
This concept of panicking, it reminds me a little bit of Greta Thunberg talking about, I want you to panic.
I want you to panic.
And she was talking to the World Economic Forum, and it didn't quite go that far.
Panicking will never be a solution.
I remember that little girl, and she got a nice coverage, but nobody took it serious the way that she already foreseen the future to become. which this is where we're going into the deep future, because we're already living in the modern day future where resources are becoming more and more scarce.
We need sand forever. It's something that we need a lot. So we need to be much wiser on the way we use the resource.
Right now, it's not really possible to monitor global sand use.
We just don't know enough. We don't have that global picture or that holistic picture of the extraction sites, the extraction volumes, where it's coming from, where it's going to, how it's being used.
But it can be measured indirectly.
Construction is the biggest demand sector, we know that.
There's a very, very good correlation between the use of sand and cement. The UN estimates that 4.1 billion tons of cement is produced every year, and it takes roughly 10 tons of sand to create 1 ton of cement. Do the math, and
41 billion tons of sand and gravel.
That's enough to build a wall nearly 89 feet high by 89 feet wide that wraps around the planet every year. And that's just sand used in cement production. Demand for cement is driven primarily by China, where construction is booming.
In the last 2 decades, the amount of sand that we've been using has been multiplied by 3. More than 58% is being used in China.
Part of the problem is some countries don't have regulations in place.
And then you have people who take sand from the beach, take sand from anywhere because they have to make a living. If you have a shovel and access to a truck, then you're an entrepreneur and you're taking sand and you're selling it.
In some parts of the world, there are even sand mafias.
There are sand mafia. It is a problem. That's for sure. So in some countries where the governments, the policies do not exist, it's not even illegal to take sand.
Plus, the world faces a rapidly growing population. By 2050, the world could reach nearly 10 billion people.
Africa is going to see its population doubling from now to 2050. People are shifting from their villages to join the cities, and that will request more infrastructure in the cities. All of that will request a lot of sand.
Sand can't be extracted or sourced sustainably to meet demand from a world of 10 billion people without effective planning and regulation.
If you're a local government, you need to have a solid land planning. Identify where the sand and gravels should be extracted.
The challenge is understanding where.
See, now they're trying to cover up the ass by saying they're going to go and find better places to extract the sand. But in reality, y'all done already took an enormous amount of resources from all of these special locations, as y'all like to say, and there's no real going back from those certain, there's no putting back those resources. That's exactly what I meant to say. You can't put that shit back. So to leave that shit how it is now, and that you didn't took up majority of the resources, and then they just gonna move on and say, we need to find better places now. What the fuck? That don't make no goddamn sense. What? Really? Let me go take. It's 100 people living in this community. Let me go take goddamn 10 of the people, and then not 10 of them. Sorry. Let me go take 90 of the people, and then leave 10 of them. And say, okay, yeah, well, I guess we'll find somewhere else to take 90 more people from, and think those 10 people is gonna be able to still coexist and progress in life cohesively with 90% of their people already being taken from their community. It just don't make fucking sense. It's like kind of like what they did to America.
People. Meanwhile, baby boomers are retiring and aging out of the system.
If you have an
a good one.
Timing is everything, isn't it? Anybody who doubts my company, doubts me.
An economy that since the end of the Second World War has grown based on consumerism, what happens when all your consumer...
Let me rewind it just a little bit, because I do want to get this one. It says America running out of people. This is what I said. It's a movie. Blade Runner. I said this, spoke about it in my last video as well. Blade Runner 2049. In the future, the year 2049, people were not being born no more. Everybody in the world was sterile. Majority of the people that was around were males. There was females as well, but they were these people were synthetic versions of the original humans, like we is now. A lot of people, this is gonna go over a lot of people's head, but all of this shit is gonna be the reason why we living the way we living in the future.
Having children is the ultimate vote of confidence in the future.
It's you really believe in what your opportunities are going to be going forward. You're very certain about what your future looks like. In this quarantine time, that's the last thing that we can say.
Mothers typically talk about the more children you had is bad for their pocketbook.
What we learned from the Great Recession is that every 1 percentage point increase in the unemployment rate reduces births by 1%.
Despite speculation of a surge in quarantine babies, the U.S. fertility rate is actually shrinking and has been for a while.
Births have been falling for the last almost 15 years now at this point.
Millennials have less financial confidence than the generation before us. Living through our second once-in-a-lifetime recession has made big financial decisions like providing for...
How in the fuck can this woman just say living through our second one-in-a-lifetime financial crisis? Living through our second once-in-a-lifetime financial crisis. I'm gonna leave it at that.
And creating a brand new human, like my niece here, Sydney, quite difficult.
So I've got 2 little kids.
What she said, making it kind of difficult. This woman doesn't even have a kid of her own. She had to borrow her fucking niece to goddamn make it more, make a more emotional connection. She don't even got a kid herself. What the fuck? You are a part of the problem. This is why I say the people that's presenting the problem to us are the people that's actually a part of the, causing the fucking problem. They don't actually understand that. They think they're trying to help because they are a part of the problem. So once you create a problem, just like a baby, once a baby creates a problem, they if they know better, they try to cover up the problem. This is what they're doing. They're doing baby shit. They act like they're trying to control or solve a problem, but in return, they know deep down inside that, damn, we're the reason why this problem even exists.
So I'm pretty concerned for them.
Plus, there's a prevailing ideology that large families are a drain on the environment.
The costs of ongoing...
This motherfucker said larger families are a cost on the environment. And then, please, go back a little bit, please.
Economic growth. So I'm pretty concerned for them.
Plus, there's a prevailing ideology that large families are a drain on the environment.
So, larger families is a drain on this environment right here. Is this what you're saying? But this is the environment. This is the environment we actually naturally come from. So having a big family in an environment just like this, without roads, cities, pollution, rubber, the need of rubber, and all this other stupid ass shit. So that will be a goddamn detriment to this ecosystem right here. If we had large families living in a setting or in a habitat like this will be detrimental to the environment. I fucking doubt it. This is what I say. The people that come out here and say certain things are the ones that's causing the problems. If you can't see that, then you ain't never gonna see that shit.
The costs of ongoing economic growth.
This is what's causing the problem. Look at all this shit. Look at all these LED lights. Look at all this glass. Look at all that glass. They say all that sand and shit. Think of all these New York buildings, and every big building they got hundreds of windows. Think of all the concrete they had to use for all the roads around the whole world. Look how much resources they didn't already extracted over the last 50 years. So if we get another 25, 50 years of that shit, and we already into the second half of the 100 years. So think about it, they probably started this shit 50, 60 years ago. So now we in 2022. So that'd be about goddamn 80-something years, 75, we'd say 75 years. So in the next 25 years of them extracting all the resources from the planet, all we're gonna see is goddamn bright lights and all of this shit, and we ain't gonna see nothing outside of that, because there won't be anything outside of that, because they done took everything and dumped it into this goddamn bullshit world that we call life.
It's currently designed.
Yep. You see what they just had, that damn mall. This is what we making. Mega malls and shit.
Meanwhile, baby boomers are retiring and aging out of the system.
If you have an economy that...
You heard what they said. This is the new terminology. They're not using death anymore. Peep game. They not using They're not using the word death anymore. They said aging out of the system. In that movie, Blade Runner 2049, they like literally said they didn't say anybody died anymore. Guess what they said? They said they were retiring, or they got retired if you got killed or something, or you retired if you died, or if you died, they call it retired. They said they aged out of the system. Does that not sound like a retirement to me? That sounds like somebody retiring. So this is what they calling it. They said the baby boomers are aging out of the system. Not that the baby boomers are dying off, because that's logically what the fuck is happening. They're just dying. They're not aging out of the system. What system? The system that they put in front of us, that's an illusion. This is why I say it's not going to be a such thing as death in the future. This is why they're going to continue to use words outside of death, so we can lose that illusion that they put in our minds in the first place to get us here.
Since the end of the Second World War has grown based on consumerism. What happens when all your consumers are old and they have everything they want?
So, is the U.S. running out of people? And what impact does population size have on the economy? To maintain the current population size, every woman would need to have 2.1 children. This is known as the rate of replacement.
And the 0.1 is because, not everyone goes on to have children themselves, and there's some child mortality. In the United States, the total fertility rate, that measure is now around 1.7.
The total fertility or birth rate refers to the actual number of children each woman is having. Currently, there are nearly 7.8 billion people in the world, over 330 million in the U.S.
Through fertility alone, we would expect our population to start to decline if that rate is sustained for a very long period.
People think, for example, that fertility is out of control. Well, the truth is it isn't. I mean, if you take a look particularly at millennial fertility.
See, this is why I call it the menosphere, and that's gonna be my another video. We have all of these people coming out here talking about women being promiscuous, all of these people having babies and this shit, but when we had an all-time low of fertility, we're at an all-time low for humans being born into this world. So in return, we have a whole bunch of men that's on the internet and perpetuating or putting this hysteria in other men's mind and getting them sidetracked to want to have kids earlier or have multiple kids or even take on a woman with kids. And in return, this is what continue to decline our fertility rate and our human birth rate, because the more men are scared to get in these certain situations with certain women and they can't find other women outside of that. Guess what? Those men don't have kids. Those men don't get to procreate. Those men don't get to be able to put forth more life into the world. And then guess what? The damn fertility, the human race starts to continue to decline. And as the human race starts to decline, this is when they're going to propel everybody into the metaverse, where they can start to synthetically clone and create their own person.
In the United States, it's down to 1 now. The American birth rate is well below replacement rate and continuing to decline.
Although declining fertility rates can be a leading indicator for a recession, it is more often correlated with increased education and opportunities for women. But female workers add a lot to the bottom line.
So basically saying the more that they gave women feminists and equal rights, the less they became pregnant, and the less privileged and less masculine they want men, the less babies they will have. So this is why I say, didn't I say that? Same people that say that they're trying to fix the problem is the ones that in return created the problem. Y'all created that goddamn whole feminist equal shit. Not saying women did, but the system, the same system that they said people are aging out of, this is the system that people talk about. This is the same system that told women one thing and made men look like another thing. So in return, they knew what the future was gonna be like. They knew the future was gonna be less people being born, less women being impregnated, based on the shit that they did 50 and 60 years ago at the beginning of this system that we're starting to age out of.
According to one study, if women entered and stayed in the U.S. workforce at the same rate as they do in Norway, the U.S. economy would be $1.6 trillion larger. American women now are having fewer children than our mothers. In 2020, the birth rate dropped to its lowest level in 35 years. There's also been a huge decline in teenage births in the US. What's clear is that there are less unintentional births than ever before.
In addition to the decline that we've been seeing in fertility.
Didn't I say that? I'm gonna keep fucking saying this shit. It's the same people that created the problem that now in return saying that they're trying to fix the problem. They saying the less, they just said the less, what they say? I'm trying to think of the word to put it. The people that was, okay, that's how we use the Bible term. The people that was having kids out of wedlock. So basically saying that was the best thing for the human race. So this got to go deep down inside where we don't come from waiting till marriage to have kids. We don't come from not being promiscuous at a certain age. We don't come from not having multiple kids at a younger age. We don't come from not indulging in certain activities at a certain age. We don't come from that shit. We come from the natural way of living, and when it feel right, you go with the flow. And if the flow happens to bring you across another path, which is another human being, then you go with the flow naturally, and you continue to do what's natural. But since we have came from what's natural, when we go out and do these natural things, and then we try to bring these natural things that we have done, which is be promiscuous, have babies out of wedlock and at a young age and shit like this, then we try to bring them back into society, it doesn't fucking fit. But in reality, it's the thing that made civilization what it is what we naturally came from, which was doing the things I just said. And the thing that they saying that what women and men ain't doing no more is the reason why the human race is declining now. They give you a whole bunch of shit, so in the future you're gonna look back at yourself like, damn, hold on, what the fuck did I ever believe in? I believed in all of this shit. I believed in all this God shit and all this Jesus shit, and these the motherfuckers that goddamn came out and told us this shit, and now they come out and tell them that this is the reason why the human race is declining, because we chose not to be having babies out of wedlock, and we chose not to be promiscuous, and we chose to take our career serious, and we chose not to goddamn and have babies at a younger age. And yeah, okay.
There's another trend that's happening underneath that, which is an increasing age at birth.
It's more like in the late 20s or 30 or something now, compared to during the baby boom, it would have been 20.
It used to be
Exactly 20. I just had my first child at 28, which I'm still. Well, actually, I had my first child at 27, so I'm 28 now. And I keep thinking to myself, I say, damn, I feel like I'm too old to have been just now having a child. But in reality, matter of fact, not in reality, but in this civilization, people saying, "Oh no, you had it right on time, or you should have waited till you was in your 30s." A lot of people talking about waiting till your 30s and shit. Man, with this society going so fast, you wait till you in your 30s to have a kid, you gonna be looking like goddamn a grandpa by the time you get 40, and your child, you gonna be so behind your child. Technologically, you ain't gonna know how to help your child in this deep future reality that we going to. I'm gonna be done with this. TV the stop for the start now.
To see a 40-something-year-old woman who is now planning a pregnancy, now that seems to almost be, at least for us, a norm.
Women have
exactly. So people are getting pregnant older. So in return, their life is being cut short in the middle of their life. And those babies, those children's lives are being cut short at the beginning, because now you have a older parent that's not going to be as physically incoherent or have as much energy as he or she would in their early 20s, when we're trying to party and go out and do all these girl trips and have all these flights and go out to the strip club and then leave the baby with the baby mama and ain't teaching them shit because you ain't got shit to teach them, and then you just expecting to send them to school because that's what the fuck they need to know. You niggas don't know shit. That's the problem. Niggas don't know shit. And that's why I've been trying to make niggas great again, but niggas don't be listening. And for the people that is listening, and for the people that have been watching my video, appreciate y'all, man. Shout y'all out. And when this thing go spill over, man, I ain't gonna forget about the first 100 subscribers that I had. You heard me though? And that's real shit.
Change the lives that they want to live. When they have more of a decision to make about the type of family, they're more empowered to make the kind of decision they want to make about their family. And when they make that decision, not for everybody, but for most people, it's fewer kids.
So women are waiting to have their first child longer and then their subsequent children. What's sort of remains to be seen in this area is the extent to which the decline in fertility that we're seeing is really a delay of births, so that these declines for women in their teens and early 20s will be made up later when they're in their 30s, or whether this is a permanent reduction in their lifetime fertility.
The pandemic may have accelerated this trend, as people are less likely to have babies in uncertain financial times. That might mean less American.
No, this me, ma'am. The same woman that's holding her niece and not even her own child, because you don't have a child, so you obviously feel like your career comes first, and you don't maybe feel like you're economically in a position to have a child, or maybe you don't even have a spouse to have a child with because of your career is at the forefront of your life. This is why I said the same people that's goddamn saying they're trying to fix the problem, the same people that cause the goddamn problem, and then they saying that it's the economic impact. Know why? Because it's the same shit that we paid $1 for when they first created the dollar back in the early 1900s and shit. It's the same shit in the 2020 that we paying $10 for. So in return, we still getting the dollar value shit. We're just paying $10 for it. That will put anybody in an economic impact, especially if we come from a population of people that are financially illiterate for the most part. It's been real. TV La Star, man. For the star now. The book of TV La Star, man. La Soul 2V, and I'm gone.